Hi everybody. So today I am here to do my Swiftie coded TBR tier ranking video. So this is a tier ranking for the Swiftie coded TBR that I did in April and May, and also in September when Destiny's video came out with prompts for the Fearless album. So to review the prompts, they were Betty. The book that matched with it was Alex Approximately. Mean. The book that matched with it was Carrie Soto Is Back. The Prophecy. The book that matched with it was The Awakening. You Need to Calm Down, an overhyped book. The book that matched with this prompt was The Cheat Sheet. Last Kiss, If He Had Been With Me, Speak Now, A Court of Mist and Fury. Those are all the DNFs that I had for this TBR. For the main listing of prompts, they are Practice Makes Perfect for Enchanted, Tiny Pretty Things for Better Than Revenge, the Happy Ever After playlist for Ours, and Superstar. Malibu Rising for When Emma Falls in Love, To Catch a Suitor for Unrequited Love, Black Dog, Don't Want You Like a Best Friend, Never Met a Duke Like You, Bolter, Eat, Pray, Love, and Just for the Summer, Clarabow, Major Peregru's Last Stand, and The Pilot's Wife, Love of My Life, The Wishing Game, Tortured Poet Society, A Novel Love Story, The Bookshelf Bought in a Corner, The 13th Tale, and to add a Christmas book to this list, I would like to put Christmas at Midnight at the Christmas Bookstore. I Can Fix Him, Beach Read, The Forgotten Dynasty, Heartless Hunter, My Lady Jane, and This Woven Kingdom, The Prophecy, A Tempest of Tea, and Where the Dark Stands Still. For the props from Destiny's video on the Fearless album, The Upside of Falling, Behind the 15, The Upside of Falling, Hey Stephen, Behind the Net, White Horse, Powerless, You Belong With Me, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Breathe, Love in Other Words, Tell Me Why, Darling Venom, The Way I Loved You, The Things We Left Behind, Forever and Always, You Deserve Each Other, Change, Divergent, Jump Then Fall, Summer Romance, The Other Side of the Door, Reckless, Today Was a Fairy Tale, The 7-Year Slip, You All Over Me, Garden Flats, which is the only book that I have not read on his TBR list yet. It's still on my waiting list at the library and it has not come in yet. Mr. Perfectly Fine, Funny Story, We Were Happy, The Bromance Book Club. For the tier ranking listing headings are from Gabby Reads, and they are related to Schitt's Creek. My top 12 books in this TBR, which are in the Simply the Best tier, are A Novel Love Story by Ashley Poston, Beach Read by Emily Henry, Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma A. Albin, Divergent by Veronica Roth, Funny Story by Emily Henry, Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, My Lady Jane. Unfortunately, I don't have that author's name in front of me right now. Never Met a Duke Like You by Amelie Howard, Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli, Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan, and Where the Dark Stands Still. I'm going to This list is a mixture of adult contemporary romances and YA dystopian fiction and romance and general fiction. So a novel love story is about a bookstore owner named Ellie who goes away every winter to do a retreat with her friends, and she gets lost on the way to her retreat and ends up being sucked into the fantasy world of one of her favorite romance books. And the town in this romance book is very similar to Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls. So this book actually should have also been on my From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR list about books that remind me of Friends and Gilmore Girls, and I am remiss for leaving it off of that TBR list. Beach Read by Emily Henry. As I have said in previous videos, Gus and January are my favorite couple from a romance book. I just love the banter in between them. Emily Henry is awesome at writing banter, and they are just so sweet. And I also think it's kind of interesting that the characters are named after months in the winter and in the summer. August for Augustus, like August, when my birth month is, and January, as in January, when winter is, when my sister's birthday is. So I really think that was very interesting how Emily Henry decided to name those characters. This book is kind of misnamed, though, because they're not really at the beach. They're at the lake, because January goes to her dad's lake house to empty it to get ready to sell because her parents are going through a divorce, and her dad has also passed away, and her dad had an affair with another woman and was using this lake house as a second house to hide his affair, so that way the mother didn't know where he was going. And the saddest part in this book is when January reads the letters from her dad that are basically from when she was born until the final year before she died, and like, get your tissues ready for that part of the book because you will cry. The next book is Don't Want You Like a Best Friend. This is the first book in a duology of Regency romance novels that are sapphic. Sapphic means the couples are gay and lesbian. In this book, we meet Gwen and Beth and their parents who are divorced. They play matchmaker with them, kind of like The Parent Trap. So if you like The Parent Trap or Bridgerton, then you will like this book. And its sequel, You're the Problem, It's You, which is inspired by the 90s rom-com 10 Things I Hate About You. The next book in this tier is Divergent by Veronica Roth. This is a YA dystopian series that came out in 2014. It's very similar in nature to The Hunger Games because it's about teenagers who are fighting for their right to survival in a dystopian society. Dystopian basically means it's set in the future when the world has ended. And I really love Veronica Roth's writing. It's very engaging. I have read a few other books by her aside from the Divergent series, which includes Chosen Ones, which is like, that book makes me think of The Incredibles because it's what the superheroes do in retirement. And then When Among Crows, which is a fantasy book that is based on Polish mythology, kind of like the other book I read in this tier, Where the Dark Stands Still. And then Arch Conspirator, which is a retelling of the book, the Greek tragedy Antigone. I didn't quite like Arch Conspirator, maybe because I read Antigone in high school and wasn't really a fan of that either. So, the next book in this tier is Funny Story by Emily Henry. This is my favorite book by Emily Henry because the main male character is based off, you can tell he is coded to be similar to Nick from New Girl, and New Girl is one of my favorite shows on TV, besides Friends and Gilmore Girls, obviously. And Miles is the male lead, and Daphne is the female lead. This book is set in Michigan, like Beach Read is. Daphne moves to Michigan to move in with her soon-to-be husband, who leaves her at the altar for Miles's fiancée, Petra. And they end up building a kind of forced proximity relationship where they fall in love with each other, and the buildup of their relationship is really sweet. Daphne is a character I can relate to because she loves to read. She's a children's librarian. I'm not a children's librarian, but I'm very bookish like she is, as you can tell by these videos. The next book in this tier is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. This is a enemies to lovers romance fantasy book where a witch falls in love with a hunter who is hunting her. And I just loved the chemistry between this couple, and the sequel to this book is coming out in a few months, and I'm very excited to read it. The next book is Just by the Summer, the third book in the Part of Your World series by Abby Jimenez. Book 1 in this series is called Part of Your World, and you can tell that the author, Abby Jimenez, was heavy on the Disney references with this book because the title is a reference to a Little Mermaid song, and the main character, Alexis, reminds me of both Belle and Ariel. Belle because she loves to read, and Ariel because she comes from a big family of 7 siblings who are all involved in the same field. In The Little Mermaid, obviously, they're all musicians. In this book, her family comes from a long line of doctors, and she's under a lot of stress because she wants to maintain the family legacy, and that puts a lot of stress on her. Just for the Summer focuses on Justin, who is the best friend of Daniel, Bree's brother from Yours Truly, which is my favorite book in this series because the main romantic male lead in Yours Truly, his name is Jacob, and he has anxiety, and I have said every other time I have reviewed this book that Abby Jimenez did an amazing job with capturing a character who has anxiety and how he how he copes with it. So Justin is the best friend of Daniel, who is Bree's brother, who gets the kidney transplant. And Yours Truly, and how him and the main female character, Emma, connect is Emma reads his post on Reddit on Am I the Asshole? About how he has a curse about his relationship not working out, and after he's broken up with, he then discovers that the girl he dated has met her soulmate, and Emma has a similar curse, and she suggests to him, hey, why don't we date so we can cancel out our curse? So I think that's a really unique way to start a relationship, and I really like the bonding between these two. And I also like Justin. He's a very sweet character because his mother walks out on his family and he is left to care for his younger siblings who are between the ages of 5 and 8. And I would love to see a sequel to this book in which Emma and Justin get married and end up and care for Justin's siblings together. The next book in this tier is My Lady Jane. My Lady Jane is a historical romance novel that focuses on Jane, who is in the same time period of Six the Musical with King Henry VIII and his 6 wives. I can't remember if this character in this book was supposed to be one of the 6 wives of King Henry VIII or if she's like one of the ladies in waiting. But I love the dynamics between Edward, the male romantic lead, and Jane. I just think their banter is really sweet. And this book is a 3-part historical fiction series that focuses on Jane's in history. So, like, the next book in this series about Calamity Jane, and then the 3rd book, I can't remember which character that book is about. This series was recommended to me by Jess over at These Lyrics and Lines. So thank you to Jess for this recommendation. Never Met a Duke Like You by Amelie Howard is another Regency romance novel that's set during the time of Bridgerton and Vesper. The main female lead is neurodivergent, which is basically like my disability that's on autism spectrum disorder. And I really like how Amelie Howard made a character from that time period be neurodivergent. I think she did a really good job doing that, much like Julia Quinn did in The Duke and I. The first book in the Bridgerton series was Simon and his stutter. So Amelie Howard is coming out with a new book at the end of next month called The Starlit Heir, which I'm super excited about. It's a fantasy book, and I think this is her first fantasy book. So I'm very excited, and I'm excited to read the other books in this series with Never Met a Duke Like You in it, because this is a 3-book series that are Regency romance books that are based on 90s rom-com. So the first book is based on Pretty Woman. The book Never Met a Duke Like You is based on Clueless. And then the 3rd book, I can't remember the title of the 3rd book, but that book is based on 10 Things I Hate About You. So I'm excited, and I will do a full review of this whole series once I read all of it. For those of you who are fans of these movies that I mentioned. The next book in this tier is Stargirl by Jerry Spinelli. This is a YA general fiction book that is about a girl who is thrown into the wild world of schooling after being homeschooled for most of her life. Her name is Stargirl. She goes around school all day playing the ukulele. And so this book was actually technically not mentioned in any of the prompt list videos from Destiny, Rachel Catherine, or These Lyrics and Lines. It was actually featured in a video that Jack Edwards posted where he got book recommendations from Taylor Swift. How he got a hold of Taylor Swift to get these book recommendations, I don't know. I think he probably just found a list on the internet with book recommendations. I don't know if he actually got a hold of her to talk to her, but if he did, that would be cool. So, as I mentioned in my From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR about books that connect to friends in Gilmore Girls. Stargirl, the main character in this book, reminds me of Phoebe Buffay, and I am recommending this book to Lisa Kudrow. I don't think she will see this video, but if she does, I hope she reads it, and I hope she recommends me something, and I hope that Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox will recommend me something too. The next book in this tier is Summer Romance, Annabelle Monaghan's new release from early June. This is a standalone romance book. Her previous other two books are called Nora Goes Off Script, which is 4 stars, and Same Time Next Summer, which was 3 stars, and and Summer Romance got 4.5 stars. So Summer Romance focuses on Abby and Ethan. Abby is a single mother who has just gotten divorced, and she has 2 teenage kids, and she meets Ethan at the dog park, and I love their relationship and how it builds up, and I love Ethan's relationship with the kids, kind of like Leo's relationship with Nora's kids, and Nora Goes Off Script. The final book in this tier is Where the Dark Stands Still. This is the fantasy book that I mentioned that's based on Polish mythology when I was talking about One Among Crows. And I just really was educated about the Polish culture and their folklore through this book. And I'm hoping that reading similar books will help me to write my own fairy tale folklore story, because I am pivoting away from writing so much fan fiction starting the first week in January to A, write a fairy tale, and B, focus on my children's book manuscript that has been neglected because I spent so much time the past year working on my fan fiction to memorialize Matthew Perry's death. The next tier in this tier ranking is I Love That Journey for Me. And the first book in this tier was also from Jack Edwards' video where he got book recommendations from Taylor Swift. And Eat, Pray, Love is by Elizabeth Gilbert, the same person who wrote The Signature of All Things and The City of Girls. I have read her book, The City of Girls, earlier this year, and I really liked it. I didn't like Eat, Pray, Love quite as much. The only scene that I really liked in it is the scene when she's in Italy, because it made me think of my vacation in Italy when I graduated from college and all the experiences I had there and how badly I want to go back. So Eat, Pray, Love focuses on a woman who is going through a midlife crisis, and she basically goes on a excursion to go to Italy, Bali, and Bangladesh to be at one with herself and like get back, like and meditate and whatever. And I didn't really like the main character in this book, but I think she is illustrated very well in the movie of the same name that stars Julia Roberts, one of my favorite actresses, and I'm looking forward to watching this movie again, because our thematic focus throughout the year is to watch movies with Julia Roberts. In February, we're going to be watching My Best Friend's Wedding and Pretty Woman and Eat, Pray, Love. And then in the summer, we're going to be watching Wonder. And then in between all that, I think we're going to watch Julie and Julia. As you can tell, Julia Roberts is one of my favorite actresses. And the connection that I have always had to her, which isn't really a connection, but my friend from high school is a distant cousin. So we always used to tease him and say, Jacob, can you get us free tickets to one of her movies? And I can't even remember directly how Jacob was related to Julia Roberts. I think they were like second cousins or something, or distant second cousins. So I was in high school at the time when Julia Roberts was just starting to become really popular. And when she was on Friends, and the one after the Super Bowl Part 2, I was in 6th grade or 7th grade, probably. The next book in this tier is Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is one of my favorite books by Christina Lauren that I read this year, other than Tangled Up in You. I gave it 4.5 stars on Goodreads. Same with Tangled Up in You. And I love the couple in this book, especially in the flashback chapters when they're children, because you really see how they bond over books and how they grow up into adults. I hate the miscommunication between them when they're adults, though, and the whole issue that causes them to fight. That really bothered me. The same thing happened in Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, and also in Meet Me at the Lake. So I'm glad that trope was not in This Summer Will Be Different. That was her recent release. Because I hate, as you can tell, I hate the miscommunication trope. It bothers me. Adults should be able to figure out their issues without dealing with so much hardship with communication. The next book in this tier is Major Peregru's Last Stand. This is a historical fiction romance book about a guy who is a general who fights in a civil war, who retires and falls in love with a person that he met while he was fighting the war, who lives in Russia. The miscommunication trope that they deal with is a little bit different than miscommunication in other romance books, because he's married to a woman from another country and there's a language barrier. So they miscommunicate a lot because they don't speak the same language. So I liked seeing how they handled that type of miscommunication, other than how the miscommunication trope is handled in other books, which I don't particularly like. The next book in this tier is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is the third book in a series of standalone historical fiction books. This series also includes Daisy Jones and the Six, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and Carrie Soto is Back, which I will talk about later. Carrie Soto from Carrie Soto is Back makes a appearance in this book as one of the girlfriends of one of the characters. I think his name is Brandon, and you see her rage and throw all his clothes out on the lawn because she's angry about being cheated on. And I don't blame her for that, because I would be angry too if I was in that situation. So Malibu Rising is set in Malibu, California in the 1980s, and it's focused on the Rivas, who are a celebrity family. They are the children of Mick Riva, who is one of the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So you can see how all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books tied together, and I'm interested to see how her new release that comes out in June, which is about astronauts, will tie into this shared literary universe, because all of her books seem to be connected together in some way, and I actually really like that. I think it's really cool. So what I like the best about Malibu Rising is a sibling relationship between Nina and her little sister Kit, who is 15. And the reason why I connect so well to Nina in this situation is because I'm an older sister too. And that's a thing I like about the book that I'm reading right now, Daydream by Hannah Grace, the third book in the Maple Hills series, which is set in California, about college students who go to the University of California at Maple Hills. And when Carrie Carrie can read review this book, she found it was confusing that the college is called University of California at Maple Hills, because it sounds like Maple Hills should be like in Canada, or maybe like in a state that has maple trees, not in California that has palm trees. And she doesn't really feel like the school of Maple Hills kind of fits in really well with California. Because she's originally from California. Right now, she's teaching English as a second language in Korea. And I love watching her videos because she takes us on tours of Korea where she's living. And I just love getting that experience of getting to learn about another country and culture. So, I was talking about the relationship of sisters. I'm sorry, I got a little bit distracted. So in Daydream, Holly, who is the main female character, is neurodivergent, like me. So she has two older sisters, because she has two little sisters. Gigi, who has ADHD, and I forget the other little sister's name, but her sisters are 15 and 8. So I just love the relation. Like, in the chapters I've read so far of this book, it focuses on her relationship with her 15-year-old sister, Gigi. And their relationship is really sweet because of her ADHD, Gigi has a lot of trouble, like, with her schoolwork and stuff. And Henry, the male-female lead, the main male lead in this book, who is the captain of the college hockey team, he also has ADHD. And Holly is the teacher's assistant in the class he is having a hard time in. So he ends up tutoring. She ends up becoming the tutor of Henry, and I just love how their romantic relationship is building up. They go from friends to lovers, and it's so cute. So Hannah Grace did a really good job in this book with representing disabilities between Holly's neurodivergency, the ADHD of Gigi and Henry, and then one of Henry's roommates, who is the assistant coach of the hockey team. His name is Robbie. He's in a wheelchair, and there's a little bit of discussion in the book about how he has trouble finding ADA accessible housing. So right now he's living with the hockey team, but he is hoping to get his own place to live, but he's having trouble finding his own apartment because he's having trouble finding wheelchair accessible housing for himself. So I just love the way that Hannah Grace has such diverse characters in this book, and that's why I gave it 4.5 stars, and why it's my favorite book in the Maple Hills series. The next book I wanted to talk about in this tier is Practice Makes Perfect, which is the second book in the what's it called? Rome, Kentucky series by Sarah Adams. So in the first book, we meet Amelia, who is a pop star who you can easily tell is inspired by Alexis from Schitt's Creek, and Noah, who owns a bakery. In the second book, Practice Makes Perfect, you meet Annie, who is Noah's little sister, and Will, who is the bodyguard of Amelia. And this is kind of like I don't know if Sarah Adams intentionally meant to do this or not, but this is kind of like a modern retelling of the musical My Fair Lady. Annie, I feel like, is Eliza Doolittle because she's socially awkward, she has trouble in relationships, and Will comes on as her teacher because, like, he's a ladies' man and he kind of teaches Annie about how to be in a relationship, and he is like, I forget the main character in My Fair Lady, who is the teacher, but he's very similar to him in that respect, I feel. And the newest book in this series comes out in a couple weeks. It's called Beg, Borrow, or Steal, and I'm very excited because Sarah Adams is coming to Portland for a book signing on January 9th, so I'm very excited to get to meet her. I need to get out of this document and switch back. Where is it? Swiftie. Okay. So the next book in this tier is Powerless. Powerless and Reckless are the third and fourth book in the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. And as a whole, what I like about this series is the setting is set on a ranch, and it focuses on the relationships between the people who work on the ranch. And that's what I like the best about these characters. The relationships between all these characters are very sweet. And Elsie Silver just made a new romance series that is set in Canada that I read the first two books for. The next book in that series is coming out on March 4th, and I can't wait. And I have reviewed the second book in that series, Wild Eyes, in a past video, and I just love the kids in that book, who are named Emmy and Ollie, and they are so sweet. The next book is also by Sarah Adams. It's called Catch a Suitor. To Catch a Suitor, and it's a Regency romance book that's set in the same time period as Pride and Prejudice and Bridgerton. And this book reminds me of Pride and Prejudice because the romance is very similar to that of Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet. And I read this book very soon after I read Pride and Prejudice, so I could make a comparison. And I think Sarah Adams does a really good job of capturing Regency characters. The next book that I wanted to talk about is The 13th Tale. The 13th Tale is kind of like The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but instead of writing an article about a dying actress who is reflecting on her life, the biographer in this book is tasked with writing a biography of a fantasy author who is passing away and telling, like, the final fairy tale, writing an article about the final fairy tale that she is writing before she passes away. And I just really love the aspect about how this is a book about books and how it's about writing an article about writing a book. The final book in this tier is This Woven Kingdom by Tahara Mafi. Sorry, I was thinking of Atesha Mashfe, the author of Eileen, for some reason. So this book is by the same author that wrote Shatter Me, which I haven't read yet. That's the series that I'm working towards reading I have a lot of series that I need to finish reading before I can read Shatter Me. I'm probably not going to get to Shatter Me until like March or April, I'm guessing, because I still have other series that I'm reading on my TBR that I need to finish, including Harry Potter, So this is another dystopian novel, and I really love the sense of adventure in this book, and I can't wait to read the next book in this series, which I'm going to be reading pretty soon. And I don't want to provide any spoilers. So the next category is kind wishes, warmest regards. I already talked about Reckless when I talked about Powerless. So the next book in this series is The Beautiful and the Damned by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This book is by the same person who wrote The Great Gatsby, and it is basically a romance book, and it is based off of the love story about how F. Scott Fitzgerald met and married his wife Zelda, and I just really loved how the romance built up in this book. I thought it was really sweet, and this was another book from the video that Jack Edwards did where he put together a book of reading recommendations from Taylor Swift. I will link all of the videos from Destiny, Rachel, These Lyrics and Lines, and Jack Edwards in the description box in case you would like to check them out for yourself, and maybe for next year you can form your own TBR based on Taylor Swift prompts. And if you do, share them with me to see if we read the same books or if you can recommend anything to me that I did not read. The next book is The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan, but any of her Christmas books could also fit into this category as I have been reading her Christmas books. So Jenny Colgan reads a lot of books about bookstore owners who live and work in Scotland. And what I love the most about her books is that it transports you to the country that she's writing from, which is Scotland, which is a place that I have never been. And the thing that I like about her Christmas books is also that recipes are included in the back. So we just made a recipe on Sunday night from her book, Midnight at the Christmas Bookshop. The recipe gets 8.5 out of 10 stars. We made knishes, which is a Jewish pastry, but for our own spin on it, we made an open-faced kind of thing, because we didn't have the right materials to make pastry dough with, but we are going to try to remake this recipe once we have the proper materials. So, all of Jenny Colgan's books get 4.5 stars on Goodreads. The recipe gets 8.5 out of 10. The next book I wanted to talk about is The Bromance Book Club. This book was highly recommended to me at the beginning of the year by Sarah Caroli, and it is about a group of cowboys who form a book club they are all having issues with their wives, so they form a book club to try to learn how to communicate with their significant others better, which I think is ingenious. I have loved this whole entire series. I have given all the books 4 stars. The most recent book in the series I have read is A Very Merry Bromance, which is the Christmas book in this series. The next book that I wanted to talk about is The Happy Ever After Playlist by Abby Jimenez. This is the second book in the Friend Zone series, and it focuses on Sloan and Justin. Justin is a musician. Sloan is the female main character in this book who almost runs over his dog, who she's trying to get a hold of him, but he's traveling on tour because he's a musician. And I love that the song lyrics to his songs are included in the back of the book. I thought that was a really nice touch. And I love the romantic buildup between Sloan and Justin. So this is my favorite book in the Friend Zone series. It got 4.5 stars. The second book, Life's Too Short, got 4 stars. And the first book, The Friend Zone, got 2.5 stars because the guy is an asshole. I don't like the relationship. I think infertility is handled really disrespectfully. So the ratings for the Friend Zone series all over the place. The ratings for Part of Your World series are straight 4 stars for all 3 books. The next book in this section is The Pilot's Wife. So this book is a historical fiction book that is set during World War I, where a family is brought to devastation when they lose their family member in the war because their plane is shot down. And it's basically about how the family of the pilot deals with their grief. The next book in this tier is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. So out of all of the Ashley Poston books that I have read this year, this is how they would rank. A Novel Love Story gets 4 stars. The 7-Year Slip gets 3.5. The Dead Romantics also gets 3.5. What I didn't like about The 7-Year Slip, as I have mentioned in previous videos, is that the relationship between Clementine and I cannot remember the main female character's name. Javier or something. I can't remember his name for some reason, but their relationship was too insta-lovey and therefore not believable. I loved how the guy was a chef. He reminded me of Monica from Friends in that regard, and I would love to see Ashley Poston write a sequel to this book that focuses on Clementine and the chef going on tour to promote a cookbook, because the ending to this book is left ambiguous, but I would imagine that Clementine goes on a plane to travel to different countries to get inspiration for the cookbook. The next book is The Things We Left Behind. This is the third book in the book. This is the third book in the Knock 'Em Out series by Lucy Score. That is Lucian and Sloane's book. I was highly anticipating reading this book when I was reading this series earlier this year, because, I wanted to learn more about Lucian and Sloane, and I ended up being disappointed because it taught me that Lucian was a big asshole and Sloane did not deserve him. And my favorite couple in that series is Knox and Naomi. The next book is Tiny Pretty Things. This is a mystery book it's a thriller book that's set in a ballet school in the Upper East Side of New York City. And as a person who's a fan of the performing arts, I love that this book is centered around ballet. I don't know much about ballet. All I know is that this ballerina was out for blood against the lead in the ballet, and she wanted to really hurt her, which I didn't like. And I also didn't like the fact that she was basically let off the hook for her crime when she should have been kicked out of the private school. Because I should have said at the beginning of the review that they are at a prestigious ballet school and they are trained to be professional ballerinas, and their education is focused around ballet. So I just thought that the main antagonist of this book got off way too easy and that she should have been expelled. If you disagree with me, feel free to leave me a comment, and I would love to discuss it with you. The next book is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. I read this book in February for Valentine's Day, and this is a YA novel, and it reads very YA, and I did not like Lara Jean. I thought she was a brat, and I thought she was pretentious, so I will not be continuing this series or reading The Summer I Turned Pretty or watching the TV show. I was just so put off by Lara Jean's character. The final book in this tier is You Deserve Each Other, which is a romantic comedy book by Sarah Hogel. This book was from Destiny's video, and the prompt as I said in the beginning, the prompt that this book goes with is forever and always. And this is a book about a couple who is about to get married, but they are very contentious and they are about to break up before their wedding day. And it's basically about how they work on falling back in love with each other. And the build up to that is very sweet. And I don't want to spoil it in case you want to read it. So the last tier is Ew David, which is all my DNFs. And I will explain my reasons for DNFing all of these books. The first book in this tier is A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in the ACOTAR series. I could not get into this book because it was too focused on sex and I hated the smutty sex scenes, so I DNF'd it at like page 200. I will not be continuing with this series because I have seen other booktubers say that Sarah J. Maas is a Zionist, which means I believe she is against the Palestinians. And in this highly contentious political area we are in with the war against Palestine and Gaza, I will not be continuing the ACOTAR series or reading any of her other series. The next book that we talked, the next book in this category is A Tempest of Tea. This was a fantasy book that is based off of the show Peaky Blinders, which I haven't seen. It's based on witchcraft, and I just couldn't stand the main female character. She was not enjoyable to read from, so that's why I stopped. The next book in this is Alex Approximately. This was one of the books that taught me throughout my reading year that YA books are not for me. To All the Boys I Loved Before and Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell are two other books that taught me this lesson as well. Alex Approximately is about a girl who is talking in a chat room about people who are big movie buffs. And she meets this guy online. His name is Alex. And she ends up moving to California to live with her dad because her parents are divorced and she's sick of living with her mom. And she doesn't tell the guy she's talking to online that she's moving to his town. So basically, she stalks him because she wants to find what she looks like. That's one thing I didn't like. The second thing I didn't like was, if you guys remember the butler character from Mr. Deeds, that movie with Adam Sandler, where Adam Sandler finds out he's rich and he rises to prominence after being in a small town and working as a greeting card writer. The butler in that movie had a foot fetish, and so did the main guy character in this book, which is gross. The next book in this series is Behind the Net. I just didn't find a relationship in this book by Stephanie Archer to be very believable for some reason, and I am not continuing the series. Unfortunately, although Sarah Caroli has said that the second book in the series, The Fake Out, is really good. The next book is Harry Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I basically DNF'd this book because I am not a huge fan of tennis, and I just couldn't get into this book because it is about a tennis player, and tennis is just not my favorite sport. I think it's boring. The next book is called Darling Venom, and this book is very similar to How to End a Love Story because the relationship is based on the same grounds. The main male character in Darling Venom commits suicide, and basically his brother and the main girl end up forming a relationship, and they fall in love way too fast, just like the main couple in How to End a Love Story. So, yeah, I didn't even make it 150 pages into Darling Venom before I started reading it. The next book in this tier is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nowlin. This should also be in the category overhyped books because I don't even understand the hype between this book. I hated the main female character. I thought she was whiny and pretentious like Lara Jean to all the boys I loved before. And the fact that the main male character dies is pretty much spoiled for you in the beginning. So that's why I had to stop reading, because I didn't like how the beginning of the book is a spoiler, basically. The next book is The Awakening by Nora Roberts. This book starts off promising because, so the main female character in this book, her father dies. She finds out she gets a huge inheritance, and she's sent to go to Ireland. So I loved the build-up of that book and the Irish scenery, but the fantasy aspect of this book just didn't seem to fit well with the Irish setting, and I just didn't find it to be believable for the plot, so I stopped reading. The next book is The Breakup Tour by Emily Wemberly and Austin Sigmund Broca. So the thing that was going through my head as I was reading this book was okay boomer, because I don't know how old these authors are, but I really think they were making fun of Taylor Swift and insulting her when they wrote the manuscript for this book, and that's why I didn't like it, and I DNF'd it at page 110. The next book is The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. I had to DNF this book at 54% because I didn't like how the relationship was building up, and I thought the main female character was too whiny. And the final book is called The Upside of Falling. This book was published from Wattpad. I'm not familiar with Wattpad. Most of the writing I do is posted on either fanfiction.net, Fiction Press, or Archive of Our Own. I feel like people who are not in my generation use Wattpad, and I just did not like the writing of this book. I think it probably could have went through another round of being edited, because I thought it was too long. I couldn't even get all the way through it. I just didn't find a relationship to be believable. I liked the main female character because she was a reader and really into books, but I just didn't buy the relationship. And I didn't like the writing style of this author, so no offense to her, but I didn't think her book was very good. I hope she continues to write and improve on her craft and write another book. but her debut was not a good one. I'm really sorry. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great night.